Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list is actually going to be a top 20 list. I'm going to break it up over a couple videos. My thought process is to do bills number 11 through 20 right now, and then do the top 10 next week. However, this week's list is the top 10 notes with stories, which means the videos could get a little longer than I'm used to. So I might do notes 11 through 20 in this video, and then do 6 through 10, and then finally 1 through 5 in a third video, depending on how long the videos get. I might have to do it 4 videos, 5 at a time, based on the amount of time I talk about each note, because, well, like I said, the suggestion was brought to me, notes with stories, came from Edward's Hobbies. So Edward, thank you very much for suggesting this. And I know that I can start talking about a note for a little while, so hopefully this will only be 2 videos, but just in case it might end up turning into as many as 4 videos, I'll keep my eye on the timer so that each video is in small bite-sized chunks so that you guys don't get too bored with it. Anyway, we're going to start off with the top 10/20 notes with interesting stories, and this is number 20 on the list. Number 20. Didn't even put this one in a sleeve. This is a web note, a web press note. This is an experimental note, and what makes this note so cool and so interesting is that you can still find this in circulation. Well, what is it? What makes this note so special? Well, the Bureau of Printing, or the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, decided to do an experiment to see if they could print notes faster, more efficiently. And what they did was, instead of printing notes on individual sheets, they did the same way that you print newspaper. I mean, newspapers are printed every day. So, I mean, you want to talk about efficiency, that's a great way to do it. And newspapers use a continuous roll of paper, and they use a press called a web-fed press. If you envision old footage of newspapers being printed, you can see how the one continuous sheet is woven through the machine. And that's called a web-fed press. So what they tried to do is they tried to print notes the exact same way. And they found that the quality wasn't as good. And as the machine would break, it was difficult to get parts to replace it. So they started this in 1988. They started with the 1988A series. They did the 1993 series and the 1995 series. And if you don't know about web notes, this looks like a regular note to you. So what's different? How do I identify this as a web note? Well, on your standard note, this one here, you can see, well, we'll start in this corner. Here's the exact position on on a sheet of paper where this note was. This was in the A section, and it was the first note, A1. So on the sheet, I would be able to identify the location of this particular note. On a web note, you can see there is no location there because it was on a sheet. It wasn't on a sheet. It was on a continuous roll of paper. Now, if I look on this side of the note, you'll see all there is this teeny tiny little plate number there. Whereas on your average note, it's going to list the section that the note is on, the A section. This particular one is also going to list FW for Fort Worth, and then you're going to have the plate number. So on a web note, you're looking for no location marker here, and you're looking for just a plate marker over here. Now, the third way to find a web note, and you can look at the top of this one, you can see how the printing is just not very clean at all on these notes. This is pretty standard on web notes. You find here, even on the S, it's broken. So the quality of the printing was just not that good. That's why these were not used, and as soon as the machines broke down, they pretty much stopped. The last place you can find is the plate number on the back. You can see the plate number here is right next to "In God We Trust." And if I compare that to a regular note, the plate number is down here instead of up top. So regular note looks like that, and a web note only has the plate number there, no location marker here, and the plate marker on the back is up top. So yeah, experimental note from the 80s that you may be able to still find in circulation. That's number 20 on my list. Number 19. Another experimental like-ish type note. These are the Utah Goldbacks. Now, why did I put these on here? Well, to start with, they're very intricate. They're very cool looking notes. You're used to seeing notes this way. These, of course, are vertical. The Utah Goldback was an interesting idea. Our currency isn't backed by anything. It's not true. Our currency is backed by the full faith and trust in our government. And I know it's so tough for most of us to trust our government, but frankly, that's irrelevant because roughly 75 to 80% of all U.S. currency is outside the U.S. So what you think of American currency doesn't really matter. What matters is what the rest of the world thinks of American currency, since 75% of it is outside the U.S. So as long as 75% of our money is trusted by everybody else on the planet, you can sit there and say whatever you want about it. The rest of us are going to use it just fine. Anyway, so the Goldback was designed as an extension of old silver certificates. What I mean by that is silver certificates used to be backed by silver. We even had gold certificates way back that were backed by actual gold. And the Goldback decided, well, what we're going to do is, instead of saying that this is backed by gold, we're actually going to use gold in the process. So you can see this gold foil. That actually contains real gold, okay? And according to this, it's 1/1000th of a troy ounce of 24 karat gold. 1/1000th of an ounce. Gold is currently at its highest price ever, almost $2,000. So 1/1000th of an ounce, even though this says one Goldback, this has about a $2 face value, correct? No, $4 face value. If 1/1000th, no, 1/1000th of an ounce, yeah, that would just be $2 because it's worth $2,000 per ounce. So yeah, these would be, this has about a $2 value in gold in and of itself, which is interesting because these usually sell for like $7 or $8. So the whole point of making these actually out of gold, and you do the conversion, yeah, they're still overvalued technically. I think it's a really neat idea, but much like junk silver, they're not really spendable anywhere. So it's a cool collector's idea, but yeah, not necessarily something that's functional. Well, it would be functional if people would accept it and learn about it, but nobody does. So these are probably just going to end up in collector piles for years to come. That's number 19. Number 18 on my list. Number 18, this is an 1963 Series B, okay? 63B note. This is known as the Joseph W. Barr note. The Barr note from 1963B, what makes this note so unique and so collectible, this particular one also happens to be a star, so that makes it a little bit better, is the fact that when this note was printed, Joseph W. Barr was instated as the Secretary of the Treasury 30 days before the term expired. So there was only 30 days available to print these notes. So that is why people had always decided that they were going to collect these notes. Now, the thing is that when you look at all the different Federal Reserves that printed notes in that 30 days, there were quite a few, still in the range of like 400 million notes once you add up all the different Federal Reserves. So they weren't as rare as people thought they were, but people saved them as if they were rare. Kind of like $2 bills. Everybody saves $2 bills thinking they're rare. No, $2 bills aren't rare. They're just not used. You can go to the bank and get them. They're readily available. But the Barr note, the 1963 Barr note, is always talked about as one of the rare notes to collect. And, well, being that the note is from 1963, it is rather old, and you're not really going to find a whole bunch of them in circulation. But if you do, these are worth saving just for the story behind them. Like I said, Joseph W. Barr was given the position 30 days before the term was up, so he was only there for those 30 days. And that's the story behind the Barr note. So that is number 18 on my list. Number 17. Go with a little bit bigger denomination. This is a 1966 $100 legal tender. Now, most of you probably have not seen a Red Seal $100 bill. Usually when you see red seals, you're looking at $1 bills, $2 bills, maybe a $5 bill. So how did this come about? Well, let's talk about what a red seal is. A red seal is a legal tender note. Legal tender meaning a law was passed to give value to this. Okay, so a law was passed saying that X amount of dollars were supposed to be printed and distributed, and they would be backed by bonds and things like that. But since the law said X amount of dollars have to be in circulation, they looked at how many notes were actually in circulation, and in 1966 they discovered that they were well short of what we were supposed to have in circulation. Therefore, they hurriedly produced $100 red seal notes to get that number in circulation back to where it was supposed to be. They printed roughly 1 million of these, and then the 1966 A series also has roughly 1 million notes, if I recall that. I'm going off the top of my head. Actually, let me take a quick peek. Since I've got my book handy here, let's see what it says about these, just so I make sure that that's what it is. I want to say, like I said, about 1 million printed, and here we go. Red seals. Yep, not even. 1966, they printed 768,000. For Star Notes, they printed 128,000, and the 1966A, they printed 512,000. So you're talking 1.2, 1.3, less than 1.5 million of those. So yeah, 1.5 million of those total, and that was just to get the circulated numbers up to where they were supposed to be. It's funny because there's a lot of people watching this video that were alive in 66 and have never seen these notes before. So yeah, with only 1 million of them out there, for you coin collectors, think about that. Think about finding a coin that they only made 1 million of. Now think of how many of those are left compared to how many pieces of paper are left out of 1 million. So yeah, that's one of the cooler notes that you're going to find. One of the, and for value-wise, that's another thing. This isn't even twice face value. You can usually pick these up for about 130, 140 bucks. So if that's not a hint and a half for what should be in your collection, here you go. A note with a cool story and with a decent perceived value. So that was number 17. Number 16. Number 16 is not a U.S. note. Number 16 is a Canadian note. Now, this is from 1954. 1954 $10 Canadian currency. $10, and of course everything in Canada, they wrote it in English on this side, they wrote it in French on this side. That's true for all of the different things that are on here. Now, if we take a look at these two notes, they look about the same. They're pretty much the same, maybe just a slight color difference, and that's only just wear and tear. One of them's probably exposed to more sunlight. This was the original note, and I want to zoom in on the Queen here. And this was the adjusted note, I guess you'd call it. Now, if you look, there are subtle differences in the two notes. But this is the one that's interesting. Let me grab my pen real quick just so I can point this out. I'm going to get in tight on this one. I'm going to point out this white portion right here. You can see how this is actually, imagine this being a nose, and this is an eye, and that's an eye, and you can see the mouth under here. Once you can see that, you can then see a horn here and a horn here. This is known as the Devil's Head note. When they did this particular note, they took a color picture and turned it into a black and white engraving, and there is a lot of controversy as to whether the image of the devil right here was done intentionally or not. Actually, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bump the camera. You can see one eye, the nose, the mouth, clearly see the horns. So really interesting, fascinating note. And when people said we can't have the image of the Queen with the devil on there, they redid the note and they darkened those areas so that you can no longer see them. So I have the Devil's Head and the corrected note. And those are really neat to see side by side. They did this in the 1, the 2, the 5, the 10, the 20. I believe the 50, the 100, and they might have gone all the way up to the 1,000. I don't know for sure. But I've got them all the way up to the 20, both the regular and the corrected version. So that's number 16 on the list, the Canadian Devil's Head. And as predicted, we're already 15 minutes into the video because I knew I'd be a talker. So I'm going to end here with these 5 notes. We'll continue on next week with notes 11 through 15, or 15 through 11, however you want to view it. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you learned anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. I love reading all your comments, and I'll see you again next week.